Hello, folks. Welcome to this very special event from the Other Israel Film Festival. We're excited to have you here today and record this conversation as well. This event is Arabic language, a bridge across the divide. I'm Isaac Zablocki. I'm the director of the Other Israel Film Festival. Thank you so much for joining us. We're excited to do this event in partnership with the Abraham Fund Initiative, the Abraham Initiatives. We've been doing with the Abraham Fund. The Abraham Initiatives has been a partner for many years, and we've been doing events with them since the pandemic, relating specifically to Arabic language. But today, as opposed to the last couple of years where there's been an Arabic class, we really wanted to talk about one of the topics that's been coming out of a lot of the films and a lot of the discussions we've been having, which relates to how Arabic is perceived within Israeli culture and what Arabic really means within Israel, and to have a very open conversation about this theme. It relates, of course, to our to many of our films that we've already presented in many ways that talk about Arab culture in Israel. And we've seen over the years, of course, many films also that have brought up this topic either as a side or very, very specifically. But it is also relating to some films that we have coming up. And actually the three films that were left for in person that are screening tonight, we're screening at 5:30 p.m. the last chapter of A.B. Yoshua, and then we have after that The Forgotten Ones at 7:30 p.m. And both films have relate to the Arabic language, and The Forgotten Ones more specifically, of course, to Mizrahi culture in Israel and where Arabic plays a part in that. As part of the bigger picture of Mizrahi culture. This theme also comes up in our closing night film, Lady Amar, which screens tomorrow night, and it's plays a part within a Mizrahi family there and the use of Arabic. These films are also available virtually, and almost all of our films will be available through the weekend. So tell your friends, and it gives you an opportunity to catch up. At this point, I would love to hand things over to Jimmy Tabor, who is from the Abraham Initiatives, and can take it from here to introduce our panel.
Thanks, Fitzy. I really appreciate it. It's good to see everyone. We're really excited to be here with you. For those of you who don't know, the Abraham Initiatives, we are an NGO in Israel that is dedicated to creating the reality where all Israeli citizens, Jewish and Palestinian, have full and equal access to citizenship. And so the way that this works is we're working to create systemic change, really addressing the structures within Israeli society that breed inequality, and working to make change on a broad society-wide level. And I'm really excited to be here, and I'm about to turn it over to my colleagues. Ruth Lewin-Chen, who's our Deputy Executive Director for Programs, Moran Maimoni, who's our Director of Public Affairs, and Mai Aro, who is our Director of Language Programs. And one of the things I'm really excited about this conversation is that, at the Abraham Initiatives, from the outside and also sometimes from the inside, it's really, we get caught up in this dichotomy, right? It's about, Jewish citizens and Palestinian citizens, and there's, this is the point of divide. But the reality on the ground is much more nuanced than that, right? We're dealing with all sorts of different communities that are living together, and we're trying to create a space where everyone, is able to, as we call it, participate in shared society. And when you get into these sort of subgroups, there's areas of difference, right? Jewish and Palestinian, religious differences, ethnic differences. But then there's also some surprising areas of commonality, and language, languages of individuals and languages of, heritage languages is one of those areas. And so for this conversation, we're going to be sort of loosely responding to the film, The Forgotten Ones, that you'd see referenced, which looks at the experience of the Mizrahi community in Israel, and relate it, to the expertise of my colleagues. Ruth has done a tremendous amount of work in the mixed cities in Israel, It's one of our areas of focus where we are dealing on it sort of on a micro level where these different communities are coming into close contact with each other. Maya, of course, is using the Arabic language to bridge divides specifically. And Moran, does our communications and government work, but also in her sort of personal life is a Mizrahi activist and is bringing her own identity into the work of building shared society. So I don't know exactly what everyone's going to say, but I'm very, very excited to hear. So I'm going to turn it over to Maya to get us started. But first, I just want to say we're going to use the first half of the conversation for the three of them, and then we're going to open it up for broader discussion. So as we go, whatever questions come up, just type them into the chat. We'll sort of collect them and we'll weave them into the discussion as we go. So thank you all very much. And Maya, I turn it over to you.
شكرا جميل. أنا ما رح أحكي عربي. Don't be excited. أنا ما بحكي عربي اليوم because I want to have a conversation and not to teach Arabic. But here and there I can't without. So you will hear a few words. I know already some of you came because of the Arabic, so I won't ask. أنا بعرف, I know. And we will talk about the movie, how we felt, what we think about our work and lives. It's going to be an interesting conversation for me, more than you, because this is the first time I actually do it. I ask others what they think about their culture, and it's not about me and my own culture. As you know, أنا معلمة, I teach, and I do it always as the teacher, and I'm not today. أنا اليوم بدي أسمع موران وكمان روت أكثر مما أحكي, more than to speak. So about the movie, I will start and say, I watch movies كل يوم, every day, and I enjoy it كتير كتير. When I heard it has to do with my work and my language, I thought, okay, it's going to be easy, سهل, I will understand. But instead of understanding and enjoying, it took me 3 hours because at the beginning there are part French, not لا عربي ولا عبراني ولا إنجليزي, فرنسي. So I listen and I need to read the translation in English. And even if it was in Hebrew, I needed to stop and to check all the time who is talking, what are they talking about. And it's not about understanding the meaning of the word, it's understanding the history, what is actually going on. And it took me some time until I could actually sit and relax and enjoy something that has nothing to do with me, but I could do the same thing about me. And this is the interesting thing. So the first question I decided to ask Ruth and Moran, when you saw the movie, شو حسيتوا, شو فكرتوا? What was your own experience? Was it easy, something you know, excited, interesting? Would you like to start, Ruth? احكي لي.
Sure, thank you. Thank you, Ma, and thank you, everyone. So for me, as a Jewish citizen of Israel with Ashkenazi roots, okay, I know a lot about the Mizrahi history and the Mizrahi culture in Israel. But what surprised me is that throughout the film, I saw many people who are pretty much well known in the Jewish society. Some of them are poets, singers, musicians. MK Michael Biton, who is the first speaker interviewed in the film. And it was really strong to see how these people who all of them share the Mizrahi culture. Their parents came from Morocco, Algeria, from Yemen, from different countries, how all of them felt that their history is, like is not the main history on which people are being taught. They all feel that their own history has little place in the Israeli society. And for me, it was really interesting because we're talking about people who are public figures, some of them, and very much accepted and well known, and still only because of the fact that they are Mizrahi Jews, they feel that they do not get the same treatment. They're not being perceived as Ashkenazi Jews. So that was like one thing that really struck me while watching the film.
Shukran, Ruth. Moran, do you feel the same? Do you think the same, or you have other ideas?
First of all, hi everyone. And I when I watched the film, I really didn't feel like it brought something new for me as someone who is very much like educated and I know the narrative, and I know I was or I am an activist in this field, so I really knew everyone there, and I also knew the narrative. What was really interesting and was new to me was the fact that the personal story of this leader, the father of the filmmaker, who was one of the leaders of the Black Panthers, the movement in Israel, who really was inspired by the Black Panthers movement in the US, and it's such a tragic story, which really resonated for me. The pain that I felt for those activists, the Black Panthers, in general. Just a few months ago, I saw another film. It was a Hebrew film about the Black Panthers, and it kind of like checked where are the leaders of this movement are right now, and they were kind of scattered, even though a lot of them try to get into politics. And for me, they're such important people and men that try to do something so important for the Israeli society and to bring a voice that wasn't heard until then. And it's really kind of painful for me to see how they're really not appreciated by the Israeli society. I mean, even in the film, she tells how her family had to move from place to place and really didn't find their like place they belonged, and that's kind of, I think, part of the tragedy of the Mizrahi Jews in Israel. And so it really resonated for me, a lot of the pain and also the narrative that for me is so familiar, but I really don't, I'm not used to seeing it so much in cultural like items and on television or in movies or films. And you know, I really have to try hard and to look for those kind of things. And so it was nice to see in that sense.
تعرفي شو المعنيين شو interesting here? I started and I say that I needed actually to watch every scene twice and to check what it means. Who are those people? What are they talking about? And then Ruth said that she felt like this isn't new information, and now you're talking about feelings. You not only knew, you know the feelings, you know how they felt. You is the hititam, sympathize with them. And this is 3 different levels. You also mentioned you watch a different movie.
Yeah.
And a few minutes ago, you just show me the book that you have in your hand. So my next question exactly would be how much involved in your personal life and your work maybe, but let us put work aside a little bit and ask you the personal questions. When I ask myself where I meet those things and how many people I know, I teach Arabic. And for me, people who say they came from Morocco, من المغرب, من العراق, من Algeria, any Arab country, I feel like, all right, they say I don't know Arabic, but they do. They just don't know yet. And it takes some time, and then I see the smile when I get examples and when I talk about my culture, and they look at me like this as if I'm talking about their culture. It's amazing. It happens during the course. So I learned one or two things about it, but we never really had this conversation. I don't have a friend. I had no idea that you are, that I can ask you. And I'm actually more worried about myself as a Palestinian and about my own issues. So sometimes we just worry about our problems as minority. So would you elaborate a little bit and tell us, more than a movie, where it meets you every day, or at your life?
Well, I grew up in a big settlement where there are a lot of Mizrahi Jews. And so I really didn't, and in Israel, people don't really talk about it. Nowadays, they're kind of talking about it more in a political sense. The entire Mizrahi narrative is kind of recruited for the right-wing political camp. And so political wing. And so, but when I grew up, no one really talked about it. So the first time I think I kind of, even though I have to say, like when I watched Israeli series in television, like I felt that those people, I couldn't empathize with them. Like I didn't, like, who lives that way and who talks like that? And like, it was very like foreign for me. I really couldn't connect. I haven't seen people on television that looks like me or my friends or my family. And so I think the first time I really understood the difference or the tragedy was in the university when I started reading researches and theories. I studied sociology, and so the first time I really learned about the inequality and how rooted it is in the Israeli society. And of course, there are the stories within the family. For example, I have in my family a story of a kidnapped child. I'm half Yemenite. My father is from Yemenite origin, and he had a sister that was kidnapped, like they said in the movie. And so there are all those stories, but you don't really connect the dots into a coherent narrative. And so the first time I learned about it was in the university, and then it was like mind-blowing for me, because it was the first time that I actually learned my ancestors' narrative. Because even in the school system, we don't learn about the experiences and the history of people that came from the Islamic countries. We learn about what happened in Europe, and then of course the Holocaust, and then how the Zionist movement came, and the state of Israel was instated. So I really couldn't. I really haven't learned my narrative and really got to know it for the first time in the university. And then it was like really mind-blowing for me. And I started to read a lot about it, and I started to try and figure out how is it that people don't talk about it. If the inequality is such dominant in the Israeli society, how come no one talks about it? And I learned that there is a lot of silence around it, because and I can like understand it in a way, because Mizrahi Jews really want to be a part of the Jewish state, and they don't really. And when they did try to talk about it, like when the Black Panthers movement era, so they were really denounced for that. Everyone said, like, you're just whining, and what do you want? And today there is no discrimination and all those things, and everyone is getting married with everyone today. Like, there are a lot of like regular things that people say when you start to talk about the Mizrahi Jews discrimination, and so you really don't hear it that much. And for me, it was really hard to see how people try to silence the pain, I think, that this large group of people in Israel feel. And also I felt like there is a lot, there is no political consciousness for the Mizrahi Jews. Like there's no, since the Black Panthers that was in the 70s, and there really isn't like a political movement that talks about it, except, as I said, in the last few years, where the right wing is talking about it in a way that is really setting the entire theory or the entire group, the entire sociological group within the right wing. And for me as a left wing person, it was, I felt like out of place. Like no one really talks my narrative within my political group, for example. So in a way today, it's kind of, I feel like it's kind of, I don't know if isolated is the word, not isolated, but like a bit lonely in a way that in the left wing, everyone talks about like the Palestinian inequality, and it's really hard to talk about the Mizrahi inequality, which
maybe it's less important now, as if it's less important. There are other issues, and
it's also what we have to say, that it's really the Palestinian inequality is much more acute, and it's much more heavy, and you see it a lot more. When you go to Mizrahi cities, you don't see the neglect and the discrimination that you see when you go to Palestinian cities in Israel. So it's really screaming, and so I understand the need, and I'm a part of this organization that works in order to form a more equal society. But personally, it has like a sense like it's really something that is a bit marginalized in my political group. But I do think that it's something that we have to talk about politically and in our social like our work, citizen society organization, because I think that, like, for example, in the mixed cities, a lot of the people that are living in the mixed cities, the Jewish people living in the mixed cities are Mizrahi. There are a lot of people from also like from the 90s Aliyah, but a lot of them are also Mizrahim, and so I think it's something that we have to know. Like, we have to know the culture, and we have to know the narrative in order to really form connection on the ground for us, like for our work.
Wait a second, maybe Ruth can explain to me what you've just said. If you're saying that at mixed cities where we focus on the relationship between Arabs and Jews, they are Mizrahim.
The Jews mostly, yeah.
Mostly. It means supposed to be easier. Same culture. We all must understand each other. If they had good relationships with their grandma, grandpa, so they heard Arabic as kids and maybe still at home, and yet it might be actually the most problematic areas. And well, maybe Ruth can explain a little bit about it, since that's your project, Ruth, how it happens. How come it's not easier? Is it because we're too close to each other?
Okay, so just to clarify, I guess that not everyone here are familiar with the term of mixed cities. When we refer to mixed cities, we're talking about cities in Israel, in which there is, I mean, these are cities that have a majority of a Jewish population, but with a significant minority of Arab citizens living in this city, which leads to a proximity between the two populations, the Jewish and the Arab. And I want to say, when we talk about the narratives and the history, we often see that there is a perception or an assumption of a zero-sum game, as if we bring the Palestinian history to the front, then it means that the Jewish population is giving up on something. If we bring the Mizrahi history to the front, the Ashkenazi population is giving up on something. And I think that this is a part of what we at the Abraham Initiatives are trying to really, this is the perception that we aim to change, saying that when you have Mizrahim, Ashkenazim, and I have to say to people here who are not aware of it, this terminology, which is very much like it's very significant in the film, okay? But usually it's not something that we talk about in our everyday life, okay? And I mean, and I think it's important to be aware of it, but not to take it to the stereotypical place of talking about people as if like categorizing them to Mizrahim or Ashkenazim, okay? It's not something that we do in our society, in our everyday. But I really feel that what we want to see in every place, in every mixed city, and also in mixed regions, because again, for people who know Israel, Israel becomes more and more mixed. Palestinian, Arab, Palestinian citizens of Israel move to cities that were considered to be Jewish cities because of lack of housing solutions, because they want to improve their standard of living. More like people are getting closer to each other. The towns are more and more connected. People live in one town, but they go shopping or sitting in restaurants in another place. And so Israel is really becoming more and more mixed. And this perception of a zero-sum game is dangerous because it says if someone feels more apart or that this city represents his history, his identity better, okay, it means that I'm losing something. It means that I cannot feel as much like a part of this city. So this is really something that I think that we really have to change. And it was interesting for me in the film, in the Forgotten Ones, to hear how some of them say, we, for example, in Dimona, Kobi Ifrach, one of the interviewee said, he said, here in Dimona, in the Negev, we live in peace here, Jews and Arabs, okay, he did not talk about Ashkenazi and Mizrahi, Jews and Arabs, we live in peace here because we came from similar cultures, yeah, like you may said. We came from similar backgrounds. He said most of the doctors here in the Negev are Bedouins, and he said, I want to see a Jewish resident living in Tel Aviv, Jaffa, or in Herzliya, I believe he said, I want to see them receiving medical treatment from a Bedouin doctor, okay? So it's all a part of who do I feel that is a part of my society, from my environment, and maybe I can really gain something from this variety of cultures that I'm living inside, and it doesn't mean that I have to lose something.
I completely agree. I think that Israel has a richness of identities and culture, and it actually makes the country a lot more, I think, special, and has a lot more potential. And you know, I imagine what would happen if every Mizrahi here would have known Arabic. My grandparents talked Arabic, and I don't know a word. I have to learn from my how to talk in Arabic, which, and for me, it's insane. I mean, and I would really want to to see a world where our cultures, because people in the Islamic countries didn't consider themselves, of course, Israelis, because there was no such thing at the time. They considered, or even Zionists, they considered themselves Yemenite Jew, Moroccan Jew, Iraqi Jew, like the culture, the state, the country's culture was implemented in them. They were part of the culture. They were part of the region they lived in. And when they got here, there was a process that got them, that forced them, that shamed them for their culture. And so they had to forget their Arabic. They had to forget. And I think one of the things that did survive, two things survived this process of erosion. It's the music and the food. And so, and those two things are nowadays the most popular music genres in Israel is the Mizrahi music, and the most popular food in Israel is Arab food, which we can talk about. Like a lot of people can talk about cultural appropriation in regards to the Palestinian food in Israel, like hummus or stuff like that. But it actually is a part of some of the Jews here, some of them's culture. Like, so for Mizrahi Jews, the relation to Palestinians, I think, is much more complex, and that is the reason there is a theory, okay, that says that this is part of the reason they're trying to distinguish themselves from the Arabness, and that is why you would find them more right-wing, more like voting for people or saying that they don't want to be mixed with Arab or Palestinian citizens here.
تعرفي مران شو فكرت؟ Yes, Ruth.
I just want to add that one of the interviews in the movie said, she said, we are so much alike, like the Mizrahim and the Palestinian citizens, and we don't want to be compared to Palestinians again. I mean, this zero-sum game and this hierarchy, this hierarchy that doesn't really exist or shouldn't exist. And she said, because we are so similar to each other, we force ourselves to be something that we are not. Because, like Moran said, we want to be different. We want to be we define ourselves according to what the other is and how we are not as the other.
تعرفي لو بتحكوا عربي, there is a say in Arabic, we say أنا وأخوي على ابن عمي وأنا وابن عمي على الغريب. It means me and my brother against my cousin, but when needed, me and my cousin against strangers. And I think that's why it's more urgent, and the price of being together as Jewish, whether you are Ashkenazi or Mizrahi, right now is more important than dealing with that. And you a bit ignore, but you do know, since you have a bigger problem, that 20% we are إحنا الفلسطينية اللي مع الهوية الإسرائيلية, and we are so involved. We speak Hebrew, we live, work, go to universities, and we learn how to play the game. Democracy, we want to be equal, but this is a huge problem that will take a very long time, and maybe that's the process, okay? But we may not be able to see a solution yet, but our life would be during trying to find something to do it, okay, and not a solution. I can't think of a solution right now, but I'm thinking of what you just said, Moran. When you became 18, not 18, when I'm 18, I go to university, you go to the army. You go to university after about 22, 23. So when we go to university, which is when you leave home, house, your own neighborhood, and you mix, you actually mix, you immediately feel the differences. And now I will connect through it, because when I became 18, I went to Haifa to study and become a teacher. And the first advice my mom told me, because of the situation, she felt like I need to be careful when I speak Arabic on buses, public transportation. And I remember that because every time my phone rang, I wasn't sure I should answer the phone or not. Is it safe to start speaking Arabic? And when you don't understand, you feel threatened, and people look at you immediately with a very mixed feeling, whether they understand or not, feel comfortable or not. And after 1 week in Haifa, I remember I told her, Imma fi Haifa bihku Arabi. Bihku Arabi fi الشارع. They speak Arabic. I'm not the only one. I can hear Arabic around me. It's fine. It's not Netanya, it's not Hadera. في Haifa, it's different. And their voices are loud. صوتهم عالي. Every time, I'm 41 now, every time I enter Haifa, Yafa, or Akka on Sunday route, when we met there, and I hear Arabic around, I immediately know what it means to live in a mixed city. It feels different. And as if you adopt someone, a kid, and he can be yours, your culture. This is what he eats, drink, and you educate him. But one day he will ask, who are my parents? Where I came from? It will happen naturally, this way or another. And it happens with time. No one taught me and told me, you're Palestinian, let's tell you what's going on here between Arabs and Jews. You learn that because it's part of you, it's your identity. And it takes time until you are able to be active, to talk about it, to notice, to look at the other in the eye and to tell him what you feel or think. It never gets easy, but you do learn how to swim if you are living next to the sea. Otherwise, you're gonna drown. I want to ask you if there was one scene or sentence from the movie that you remember in particular, and why?
I just want to, before I'll answer, I just want to say that I really connect to the feeling and the experience you just described, because also being Mizrahi, I couldn't, as I said, I couldn't really put my finger on the differences and on like my personal culture and what the hegemony and like the dominant culture. I saw the differences, but I really didn't understand what that means. And when once I got the words for it at the university and I started talking about it at my house, my parents kind of freaked out and they said, don't talk about it because people don't want to listen to it and people don't want to hear. And I think one of like the erasure of the original culture, or the origin culture for Mizrahis is a tragedy for me. And I really, but I can really understand like the feeling of having to, not talk in Arabic, because those stories run in Mizrahi families. The people that talked Arabic were ashamed and didn't want to talk in the language in the public sphere. And I think the most painful thing for me is that people that did talk Arabic was actually recruited for the army to intelligence. So they used their Arabic, and until today, Arabic is being taught here as a purpose for intelligence and not as a tool for shared living and shared society. And so that's the first thing I wanted to say in regards to your experience. And to answer your question, I think the most powerful scene for me was the one with the old Yemenite women that even so many years after the tragic thing happened to them, or the people they knew, the babies were taken from them, that is still an open wound for me and for, I think, a lot of Mizrahim in Israel. So it was really the most powerful, because to see someone that looks like my grandmother talks about such a horrible thing that happened to her, and you could see, and they talked about the lack of, like, choser onim, how do you, like, the helplessness. They couldn't do anything. They didn't talk the language. Everyone disrespected them. They tried to look for the babies, you know, I mean, those are their babies. I gave birth twice in the past 5 years, and I couldn't imagine. I was so afraid. Like, there's you know, in Israel you can put the baby in like a nursery after you give birth, and for me it was unspeakable. I couldn't think of doing that, of putting my baby there, because the trauma, even though it happened to my grandmother, and which I barely even knew. I was 5 when she passed away. The story, the notion was so horrific for me that I couldn't even, you know, and it took me a while to understand why I had such an emotional reaction to the concept of putting the baby in a nursery after giving birth, because a lot of women are, you know, they want to rest, they need to sleep after giving birth, and I really couldn't, and so I think this was the most powerful scene for me, because it really resonated feelings and a pain that I still vividly feel, because it's a part of intergenerational trauma that really isn't recognized by the state of Israel still, 70 years after, and there is still a public debate about whether it happened or not, even though hundreds of women said that it happened to them, and there are so many so many people that are saying that the exact same story happened to them in the same way, and people still don't believe them, and it's still a public debate. And so this was the most powerful and intense scene for me.
Thank you, Moran. Ruth, شو رأيك? What do you think?
First of all, I mean, I want to respond to what Moran is saying, because this generational trauma is also something that we, of course, see in the Palestinian society in Israel. I mean, we see, just like you describe, I mean, when you have an open wound, sometimes people just want to be recognized, that other people will recognize that they have this wound, that they have this trauma, that they suffer from it, that certain experiences did happen, and not to feel like their stories are, are immediately being like nothing happened and you're just dismissed. Yeah, thank you. And we see the same, I mean, with the Palestinian history, okay, with like 1/5 of the population, the Israeli population, saying we still carry the baggage, the trauma of the Nakba of 48, and we want the Jewish Israeli society to recognize that. We want it to be something which is taught in schools, just like the Jewish history is being taught. We want our history to be like represented as well. And that's also a part of our work in the organization, to really try to see what can be done in order for the Ministry of Education to understand that the education curriculum has to take into consideration the Palestinian history as well, the Palestinian narrative, because otherwise this wound stays open. I can also tell you that we see that after the violent events that took place in May 2021, we also saw this clash of narratives of certain population saying they did this, and the other side saying no, they were the violent population. And when people really don't even try to recognize the other side's pain, we'll see this trauma just continuing. But I also want to refer to your question, Mai, and Shlomi Khatuka, who is a poet and a social activist, he said in the Forgotten Ones, he really talked about the issue of lack of representation. He wasn't the only one. Roy Hassan also talked about it, saying like, I had no Mizrahi role models. I didn't see Mizrahi in commercials, in the media. I did not see people that I can relate to as role models. And I also want to take this issue of representation to a broader perspective, really talking about how does a population want to be represented in the public sphere. So when you talk, May, about going to Haifa or to Acre, okay, I would ask, when I see the signs in the streets, are they in Arabic as well or only in Hebrew? The street names, are they street names that also refer to the Palestinian history? In some of the mixed cities, the Arab population is a third of the city population, okay? Are the street names really recognizing the Palestinian history, narratives, figures, role models, poets, or all the names are only taken from the Jewish history? Are the workers in the municipality Palestinian as well, or almost only Jewish workers, as we say? These are all questions of representation that I think are brought through the film, but are very much relevant to the Palestinian society as well. And I think we have questions.
Not yet, but we will encourage you to ask if there is any scene of our discussion and talk that you want to say something about or to ask a question. This is the time. We're here for you. I must say, Ruth, that I looked for any word in Arabic, anything, and then I realized the idea that it's everywhere. They are talking about being like me, the way I feel, coming from Arab Muslim countries, and this is the language they tried to hide, the culture that they were not able to be proud of because they wanted to feel more loyal, more white, more Ashkenazi, more Jewish,
more Zionist.
Shukran. And only later, when they are older, they feel like something is wrong. And then by the end of the movie, they say a very important sentence to me. They said, maybe we should learn Arabic after all. So it's like, it's all about you, but then it's actually about me and my culture. And it's a very mixed feeling. A relief again that it's not about me, but then realizing that there is a very not easy thing that they are actually saying, that they, I don't know, maybe through this we can come into a solution. When I teach Arabic, لما أنا بعلم عربي, it's not only about Arabic. It's about saying أنا فلسطينية, and if you want to leave, leave now. يلا بسرعة بسرعة, immediately. No one leaves. They want to come and learn and hear, and they want to discuss and talk. And sometimes they feel uncomfortable, but then they smile because it's actually interesting learning about the other and being able to talk. It's more difficult for me than for you to talk about it. I am minority. It hurts me. It's my own pain. And if I expose myself, the least you can do is to sit and learn Arabic with me. تعلم عربي معي. How are you? You were so quiet. A lot of you didn't open their camera, which in Arab course is forbidden. I need to see all of my students and the faces behind the, exactly, thank you. Sue, shukran. So if you're here, if you want to say something, please.
I was writing in the chat, but I just wanted to, I watched the movie twice, and I really appreciated all the issues that it raised, all the different angles between the kidnapped babies and the relationship with the Palestinians, and the heart, like being brought to Israel under false pretense. I mean, it hit a lot, and many movies don't bring in so many. I watched it twice, but it was very hard to watch because of that. But I did appreciate it. It tried not to leave too many stones unturned, which many movies don't bring in all the different aspects. So shukran.
Thank you.
And I was in Israel in '74, and as an Ashkenazi Jew, I was put in Kiryat Shmona as like a volunteer, right? The nice to many, those of us high school graduates or college graduates, we were put in Dimona and Kiryat Shmona to do nice work and not really knowing what was going on. So, yeah.
Shukran. Ilek, that's interesting. I want to know what others from different places, far away, have you been here? Have you seen, heard? Could you understand the materials? فيش عربي اليوم أكتر.
So
Elisa,
can I ask you a
yes.
question, or
Sure.
you know, or lead you to a story? So you know, for the Abraham initiatives, all these questions that you all brought up are very live for us, and I wanted to put it a little bit more in the context of how this functionally works. Like, how does this impact our work? What exactly? How do we use these things in order to try to advance a shared society? And one of the things that you do is you teach these Arabic courses, and I think we haven't sort of the context for everyone is that, you know, as I said, the Abraham initiatives, we're looking to create systemic change. So we're trying to figure out what are the points of leverage that we can push on in order to model or impact things in a broader way. And so you teach Arabic to influential Jewish Israelis, right? Folks that have are responsible for constituencies that include Palestinian citizens, but oftentimes have no idea about that community. They don't know anything about it, even though they're responsible for it. So you've been teaching these courses in the mixed cities for the mayors and city council members and municipal workers and all these sorts of things. And I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about that experience and how does this, like, I'm thinking, you know, obviously, because we've done this a lot, about your experience with the mayor of Ramla, but what is this like for you? You know, and what is the possibility here? Like, what do you think that this can do, and what have you seen it do?
I will go straight to the point, Jimmy. We gave them a course and they said, we don't speak Arabic. And then I realized here and there, هو بيحكي شوي عربي. Where are you from, Michael Vigel, the mayor of Ramle? And he said, the roots, grandma من Morocco, I think, المغرب. And I said, أيوة هذا عربي, you know, it's Arabic. He said, no, I speak Moroccan. And I said, Wallah, عن جد. So you will figure out, you'll find out that it's Arabic. And it took me time to convince him. But the beautiful thing that happened is that it was the first time very busy people, very busy. Sometimes he used to be on the Zoom while driving the car. His wife was driving the car and he was with me, listening to the Arabic lesson and trying to participate during, going somewhere. Sometimes people were interrupt us here and there, and he has to take a phone call or something, but he was always there, and not only him. I do appreciate the fact that they started, ended, and even asked for more. And we actually gave them 2 courses, not 1, until the point that it was COVID, Corona, and they needed to speak to the workers at the municipalities and to encourage them to go and to have the khisoon. How do we say khisoon?
Vaccination.
Vaccination, thank you. And he decided to send the messages in Arabic. I mean, I've been teaching for 20 years. We tried the 6th year with the Abraham initiatives, so many courses to everyone who is willing to, and even to those who were not sure. Only when they say, yes, you got it, and you have a beautiful course. But feeling like in this emergency, people decide to talk in Arabic and not in Hebrew, and to send a message where they have mistakes. They will never say it right 100% because he's a beginner after all. But he sent me the message, I correct, I send it back, and he again record himself 1, 3, 4 times until you can understand what he's saying. And then he said to me, listen, it was so meaningful. People came to me, hug me, kiss me, send me messages in Arabic. I mean, I know they love me, but there was a moment where I felt like they appreciate the offer. And people do. That's why we actually insist to do it, because it affects people. When I tell you that when you say the name wrong, it's one thing, but when we became automatically say our names wrong because we don't expect you to pronounce it, say it right, this is a bigger problem. Only by talking about it, my students, the participants, they go around and start talking to their friends and ask them, "Shu ismak?" No, really. "Shu ismak bil-Arabi?" Is that how you say it in Arabic? And they were shocked, because when you insist, people will tell you. When you don't, we'll manage. Basof mistadreem. It was the Bedouin who said to Habiba at Beersheba, one of the scenes, and he was listening with the shisha hook. How do you say shisha? And he was listening to her talking about her problem as Mizrahiya. And then at the end, he said to her, but at the end, you manage, right? And it was an important thing, because after all, you do manage. I mean, comparing to us, Moran, that's the idea. We think you manage when we compare our problems to yours. But what you just said loudly, not yet. No, not really. We still need to deal with a lot of issues that's still open. Well, I think
I'm sorry to be the one that has to interrupt, but this is there's a lot more going on in the chat and many more exciting questions, and this has been a fascinating conversation, and hopefully we'll find other ways to continue it. I want to thank the 3 of you, Mai, Ruth, and Moran, for being here as part of the conversation, the Abraham initiatives, and I want to thank Jimmy for getting this all together. Tonight at 7:30, The Forgotten Ones screens in person, and we'll continue that conversation with the filmmaker as well. The film's also available and virtually till the end of the week, till Sunday, and you can watch all the films from Other Israel that way as well. Thank you all so much for being a part. Thank you for enjoying the conversation. And we look forward to seeing you in person at the screenings as well.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you all.